Hello, everybody. Welcome back to those that have joined us so far. Welcome to Machina Bristronica if you've just arrived. Here with Roland Enrica from Making Sound Machines, who have nice musical sounds, wake us up, shake off the Saturday evening. We're going to let them play for a moment and we'll come back and have a discussion. Let me come and ruin the loveliness by imparting some Bradfordian tones on the occasion.
Yeah, thought we start off with something chill and ambient.
Yep.
To just after the soothing sounds of a surgeon last night, we still have a little bit elephant ears, but it was also really, really cool and brought like a lot of energy. And then good way to start off the Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. So, Making Sound Machines. I still can't get over the giant Stolperbeats LEDs. It's lovely.
Yeah, there are only two out there. One is actually in Lookmam No Computers Museum.
Ah, great.
Yes.
And the second one is that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We actually made this to present at trade shows and like events like these, because if you have a bunch of people standing around you and you try to explain something, you need something to just point to and show how, I don't know, the patterns work without looking at the smaller version of the screen. And it's basically hooked up to the machine. If you change something on here, it goes via I2C to the big display and shows it. And yeah, for Lookmam No Computers Museum, we built a version of this. So if you go there and check out all the other lovely stuff and Insanity with Game Boy Mega Machines and all that cool stuff, then you can play this as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So, winding back pre-modular though, I think you've both quite a rich musical production history. I don't need to know where you were born on your parents' names. Pre-modular.
Any allergies?
Yeah. No. What were you coming into modular with in terms of a musical or a technical history?
Yeah. So musically, we both learned big string instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned cello as a kid. You learned double bass.
Yeah.
And then we met while studying audio production.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
The modular thing kind of happened, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there a catalyst for that? So string players into music production.
Yeah. Well, I was always a little bit like, okay, if I learn an instrument, I learn the classical version, I can infer a lot to the pop music version, right? I learned classical guitar, the one that you, with a little stand, that you sit like this and then very upright and try to get some nice tones out of nylon strings. Then I also bought like electric guitar and tried to, I don't know, make pop music at 14 with Magic's Music Maker, as you would, and then later with buzz modular trackers and stuff. And that's already where a little bit of the modular stuff creeps in, because you could connect little machines and you had like a 303 type acid thing and you connect it to a delay and then you make a sequence like in a spreadsheet and then you have a song like in a spreadsheet, and that sort of taught you how to make music from numbers, right? And then I sort of extended that into, hey, let's go and make, let's go and learn a classical instrument, because like all the stuff you learn during classical education might come in handy later. And I think I was like the worst student ever of classical music, in the way that I never went on to play as an orchestral musician except in studies. But then also I really loved like sitting in an orchestra and listening to all the voices. I was like, oh, that's interesting what the flute does there with the clarinet, or how things are done in registers.
Yeah, the interweaving lines of writing for multiple parts.
And so now when we do wavetable, with a wavetable generator, all of a sudden I say, that's similar, right? You get like a timbre, and then you put it in there, and it plays 2 notes, but it's also nice to put it out as chords, and yeah, that's a little bit, I guess, how that interlocks.
Yeah. A way of thinking of multiple parts weaving together, which modular is very good at, as opposed to being, say, block chords on a keyboard. It's not that approach.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
the sound aspect, sound shaping aspect of patching. It's really cool.
And then after both of us having Beethoven and Mozarted enough during our studies, we met in production studies. And so actually the catalyst to get into modular stuff was we had a workshop with BASTL before they were BASTL. So they were Standuino back then. And they had...
so like the first version of the kind of granny sampler series?
They are fantastic. So they're really fun. You can make them really noisy, screechy. And we discovered that we had different patching styles back then, because I would always stay in the range and try to get something really cool. Enrica would always turn. The thing would crash, but on a really good setting. It sounded really good. So.
You're looking for edges.
Yeah, exactly.
You're sticking in the path.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where the love of soldering came to be somehow.
Building from those workshops.
Yes, exactly. Making something that works, and you can make music with a thing you build yourself.
So what's the time frame then between the BASTL workshop happen or pre-BASTL workshop happens? You're building things. At what point is, hey, we could make something, or I want to design something, or I've built this filter, but I'd like a filter that does this, or
doesn't that start almost immediately? Like if you have a modular thing and you solder it together, then it's like, but if I could like insert a knob in here, right? It starts really small. Like that's maybe why everybody makes unbuffered multiple first.
Yeah,
right?
I can put sockets on a panel. I feel
could
comfortable.
put something here, and then I have 8 MIDI channels, or 8 MIDI cables, like that kind of thing. And I think the other step was a little, like almost in the other direction, where I got you 2 of the last kits that Mutable Instruments ever packed, like the Anushri, I think it was, and the Shruti. And it was just as the DIY thing was winding down, I was like, oh, this would be the perfect gift. Do I spend like 300 quid on the perfect gift?
And it was the perfect gift.
Click. And then a week later, Enrica was like, so I put this together. The screen is a little crooked. It's a little tilted. But it works. And it was like totally like the joy of having made something that makes a plonk is just ridiculous and fantastic. And sort of that's what carries you through to the whole, maybe I could make something, right? And the first things we made were really simple indeed, like this multiplicand multiple, where you patch in one thing from the top, and you can either sum 2 together, but you also have synths and can return them, like a little utility that we missed.
It's more than the simple mult, though, in that it's the 4 buffered mults and the precision adding of them as well.
Yeah, of course. I think that's what you call feature creep, right?
A little bit.
You're like, okay, well, if we make a mold, then it should be buffered, because then we can do CV, and then we can add it together. And that would be really interesting. What if it had the mutes from a drum machine, where you stick something in and it gets removed from the sum, and, like just testing the waters of how to put these things together.
But we did this, we had like an installation, like the sound sculpture installation, and we put a lot of piezos under there, and then we were like, ooh, okay, now we need like a ton of piezo preamps. So we made 4-channel versions.
Yeah, exactly.
That go with that multiple, and that were the first DIY kits.
And then just to root everything together, and it was just a lovely installation. We had like a huge table. We had, I think, 16 piezos all over the place, and then everybody tested the water a little, like, and it's going into a huge delay, and was in the church, and then everybody brought their children, and the children were like, bang, 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 and it was like this huge noise, and everybody was happy. There wasn't any music made per se. Was more like a really industrial soundscape.
Yeah. I find with things I've done at science tents and things like that, working with children and adults, you've got to really eke out adults in terms of them being willing to engage. They kind of look from a distance.
Yeah.
So they're hard to get going, but then the children are really hard to stop.
Oh, yes.
Which is great. It's what it's there for, and presenting to them to come and play. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but then also just the sheer joy of taking something so we had one guy come over, so we had brought like little maraca eggs and stuff that just does percussion sounds, right? Somebody comes over, and we also had like this rough grinding paper.
Like sandpaper.
Sandpaper. Okay, so guy takes the maraca egg, puts it on the sandpaper, and it's like and he ruined the thing. It's like all scratchy. It's like it looks like something you gave to a cat for 8 years. But he was so happy, and then he told us about all the musique concrète and how he felt connected to that by just playing around with that. And that's I don't know, like the best we could have hoped for.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
So if they say first 2 DIY products, but then you made a massive leap forward into Stolperbeats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Corona happened. We had a lot of time at our hands. And Stolperbeats actually came from a prototype module I made. So the idea of this module was to record voltages somehow.
And play them back.
Play them back, yes.
Yeah.
And it was Arduino based, so it could run any sketch. And then Roland said like, oh, shouldn't we make it play triggers?
Yeah, yeah.
And somehow on this thing, the first Stolperbeats prototype happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also, so first of all, it's really fun how you take one project and it turns into something completely different.
Yeah. Because I don't see Stolperbeats and think, ooh, CD recorder.
Yeah. And so the funnest part was, it was the 4-channel thing. It output something. It had some LEDs, it had some knobs, and you could push around on it. And then we were like, so how about having something grids-like, but that can also do really push-pull grooves and patterns. And then it was really a question of getting to develop a surface that can reflect that, basically. And
did you think that was lacking? Because it definitely kind of pre-Stolperbeats was and still is like this ability to pull and push grooves around, which someone, say, on an MPC might just go, I'll just take this off grid a bit before or a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has a lot to do with having listened to a lot of US music and having listened to a lot of UK music, and all the stuff that I liked about it were things being slightly wonky, slightly in a feeling push-pull sort of situation, and I just couldn't find that or find how to make that easily in modular.
Yeah, I'd similarly, playing as a drummer in a band that worked with producers in a kind of hip-hop setting, sort of the kind of J Dilla sloppy beat kind of thing. The producer might turn around and go, just play the hi-hat a bit late.
Yeah.
And you learn to coordinate your limbs, you don't learn to uncoordinate your limbs.
Yeah.
But in a similar way on the modular, that's also not that simple. To take the pattern that you've made and go, I'll just take the snares on 2 and 4 offbeat and I'll pull the hi-hat the other way. It takes quite a bit of thinking, because you often have to put steps on maybe a step early or a step late, or you have to use function generators to delay them, and then it's lots of patching. Whereas this, it effectively condenses it down to a single knob and some buttons to kind of impart that groove on what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also, I think the one of the decisions that you learn go into a user interface is which features to put on top. Like Do you want to get going quickly, and then you put like patterns on top, and you put muse on top, and you put shuffle on top, or do you want to really in-depth edit, and then maybe you have other stuff that is more important? And I think that makes a huge difference in an instrument, right?
Yep.
Is this something that gives me a head start and lets me decide later what I want to change? Or is this something like a blank canvas and I can just invent music in the way that I imagine it? And so that's really interesting. Like, I think to me it's more in the first category, that it tries to give you a head start. If you want to learn about beats and grooves and stuff with it, you can, and then you can edit stuff. But it gives you sort of this first push. Look, here's some material.
Yeah.
Play with it.
You don't have to dig deep.
Yeah.
You can just turn the knobs and interesting stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, you can change settings and really learn the theory behind it.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Occasionally I'll kind of twist into a pattern and think, I'll just move that one hi-hat.
Yeah.
And it's doable. It's
Yes,
quick.
yes.
But the first part of just finding things with knob turns feels very modular and engaging and very quick.
Yeah.
Can we hear it? For anyone that hasn't heard this
Yeah.
idea of and Stolperbeats, did you say Stolper is German for stumble?
Exactly, yes.
A stumbling beat.
So it's, we name our things what they do. So we are called making sound machines. We make sound machines. And the Stolperbeats makes stumbly beats.
Mm-hmm.
So now you already hear like the shuffly beat kick in. Mm-hmm. So if you turn this all the way up, it's straight. Let me dial in a hi-hat pattern where you can hear it really clearly. And so now if you start to thin out the pattern a little bit.
And the thing is, it's not just a shuffle like a percentage, like a lot of electronic shuffle is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's on tablets. So in a way, so this is the Germanist thing, right? You make something that plays off-grid, but then you try to make it very precisely off-grid. Like you take it, but what if it were an actual septuplet or an actual quintuplet?
Well, that's how a lot of the jazz musicians seem to be analysing that. They were looking at kind of J Dilla beats and going, this is the first and fourth note of a quintuplet. If I think in groups of 5, this, rather than going from the kind of feel-based nature of making hip-hop beats.
Yeah, we watched a video of Questlove, and he explains how he he can play like 9 tuplets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Stolperbeats also can do.
Should also say the encoders are all push-button mutes as well for the parts. It's very playable.
So it's of course turning something off is equally as important as turning something on, right? So if I want no kicks and snares, then I can easily have that, and I can drop them back in. I know exactly what I did. There you go.
The thing it has as well that I've not seen, and you'd have to use a kind of network of logic modules to achieve, is the linear button, which I knew from having drum lessons. And my reference for that was always David Garibaldi from Tower of Power. Had a great book for drummers learning to play drums about linear beats.
Yeah, linear beats, of course, the idea is that you have rhythmic information in a pattern, but it stacks up, and if you put layer on layer on layer, then, for example, you have a 16th note hi-hat that always creates noise on top of the music that you want to play. So, and in a jazz band, usually, like the drummer is the loudest instrument. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a bass solo or something, and you play a hi-hat, like 16th notes on top of it, the bass solo is gone, right? Yep. And so the idea is reduce the information, but keep sort of the same rhythm in there. And so how the linear is a little logic functionality that basically mutes hi-hats whenever kicks or snares play, so that you keep the same rhythm.
It means two things can't hit at the same time. As you say, so it's only ever one trigger active at once.
Yeah, it's like a drummer with one hand. He can only play one sound at a time, basically.
So now, if I hit the button, this has massively cleaned up my hi-hats. Much stuff, little stuff, right? And so it's
a very musical way, as you say, bass players taking the solo, your modular synth riffs going wild, of just pulling rhythm back without losing the actual kind of information that's in the sequence.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, those were just... it's really interesting because I remember writing Mutable Instruments about linear drumming in with grids.
Okay.
And Mutable was like, that's a really good idea. You should do that yourself.
I had that from Emily a few times.
Yeah,
testing things. Oh, this would be really cool. She's like, yeah, it is. Do it.
Yeah. And so that in a way that was also encouragement, right? To just jump in and try something yourself. I think that's a very important step. And of course, some of our friends that we owe a lot of gratitude to are This Is Not Rocket Science. Stein from This Is Not Rocket Science is very good at the thing saying, so, how big is that new thing you're planning? It's 26 HP. Oh, that's exactly how much space I have left in my demo rack at Superbooth. Why don't you finish it in October and put it in the rack and see how it goes? And so that's just like this massive push that you get, okay, maybe we should finish something. And that's a little bit how Stolperbeats then stumbled into the world, and was really good to have it, like, to test the waters, because then a lot of feedback came in that made it into the thing it is now for the next Superbooth, which is really cool because user feedback, really helpful.
Yeah. Pulling forward in the range, you then come into the FARB range.
Yeah, exactly. We've already heard them in the beginning. They are just the folders and shapers and filters that we love in a very DIY-able format. Like, we give a lot of soldering workshops.
Because we started out by going to workshops ourselves, and it was always super fun to meet people, catch up with like-minded people. And so we decided on giving workshops ourselves, like, to also engage with the community. And those are small 4 HP circuits that you can build really fast if you have soldered before. We do them in workshops.
And it's just lovely to, I don't know, meet up with people. They come to a soldering thing. They've probably never soldered anything. They put something together, and you have something that works and makes an interesting sound. It's the best.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about.
And it's FARB, they're colour gels, do I remember that right?
Yeah,
the kind of lighting colour gels.
Yeah, exactly. A
FARB
FARB filter is what you would put, like in the olden days, before LEDs, you would put in front of a light.
Yeah, the blue plastic over the light in the theatre and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea remains a little that depending on how you turn the knobs here, you get color feedback, and you mix it in the middle, and you have a rainbow of sounds, basically.
Can we hear the one that really stands out to me is the FARB shaper?
Yeah, sure.
We just do like a droning oscillator through the, because they're small and simple and very inviting for DIY.
Yeah.
But they're also doing very interesting things. The reason I mention the shaper specifically is that, unlike, say, certain folder designs or distortions, I find anything I feed into it is rewarding. Whereas some things you feel like, I'll start with a sine wave or a triangle, I'll fold it and get an expected behavior.
Yeah.
Whether that's pre-filter, post-filter, saw waves rather than say triangles, it gives something.
Yeah. Yeah. So one really interesting thing, of course, so if you look into shapers and folders, you look into all the West Coast design, and then you notice, oh, there's a lot of things that these like early designs do in a very interesting way. For example, the first folder pushes the wave all the way up into like some DC offset, and the other just reverses that. And so like that does not sound technically correct. You would sort of DC filter between each stage, but musically it's really, really interesting, and you get these things where if you give too little level or too much level, all of a sudden the sound becomes brittle and is almost VCA-like, or you get these PWM-like tones, and then it's a little bit like the internal battle between engineering and musically, and obviously like I love for the musical side to win. So the mistake is sometimes, or is sometimes the most interesting thing in a module, you know.
Yeah, but we let the musical side win always. I would say.
As long as it's not going to break, I think to a technical point, as long as you can make the thing and build the thing and it does what music was intended to do, I think you should always win.
Yeah.
How long, I don't think I've ever asked you this, how long did it take you to make the Effects Boy card with Befaco when you were asked?
That one.
Or how long to say yes? The idea of, we're going to put Game Boy cartridges in the module.
Oh, we said, Manu came to us and he asked us, do you want to be part of it? And we said yes, immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. It's also just such a fun thing, right, to make. So it's, weirdly enough, like the Game Boy is all digital wizardry. Like if you look into how a Game Boy works, your mind explodes with all the tricks they employed to just get a game running with as little bits and bytes as possible. And this is sort of the opposite in that it's all analog. So whatever circuitry is on here is all analog. It has little pins that are like a little patch matrix, and you take the cartridge and you put it in here, which has the same slot as the Game Boy. And then the layout of this is a little bit like a pedal in that it has a pre or post EQ, and then 2 knobs or 3 knobs for parameters. But then everything inside it is like an analog path, unless you decide to do something digital on the cartridge itself with ADDA, and which is very fun, sometimes you just get asked like, do you want to put an effect on a Game Boy cartridge? And you're like, yes, yes,
that's why I asked that.
Go.
Yes, please.
And then we were designing the FARB range at the time.
Yeah.
So we took the wave folder design and made it into the cartridge.
Yeah.
A little bit of tweaking for the ranges, but it's basically the FARB folder circuit.
It's a really nice marriage with the EQ.
Yeah.
I think the EQ makes the module, because FARB folder's great. It's really nice with an EQ.
Yeah.
We should also touch on, of course, DivSkip.
Yes.
It's an absolute pleasure for me to throw an initial idea out and it bounced back in such an amazing, magical way.
Yeah. So what we brought is like a minimal setup for DivSkip.
Yes.
It uses the Music Thing modular startup, which is able to both generate a very simple 16th note pulse, and we use that here to clock the DivSkip. And then we have the VPME QD drum, which is a drum module we love dearly. Let me hook that up real quick.
The quad drum is a really nice mix of synthesis and samples as well.
Yes. Yeah, it can play samples via the SD card, but has also synthesized models on it.
Mutes, mixing, panning, EQ.
Yeah. And this is actually like a really small setup. We have one clock generator that feeds into DivSkip. The trigger inputs are normalized through. So we feed one clock here, and then it gets also to channel 2, 3, 4.
Strong synthesis, never quite in tune. And so what we have going on here is, so click to mute, something that Ben suggested from the Stolperbeats. So these are click potentiometers, which you can engage by clicking once and mute by clicking again. The core of the module is, or the basic idea, came from a Bernoulli gate, which is something that either gives you an input all the time or gives you an output all the time you see an input.
Well, I don't think... I need to kind of look back through the files in the conversation, but
yeah, okay, let's do that.
We didn't have the dual output, I think. I may have remembered wrong, but I think you said, what do we do with the triggers that we skip?
Yeah,
Why don't
exactly.
we turn it into a Bernoulli gate, as opposed to just having a clock input that you can skip and occasionally miss triggers with. We could do something with the triggers that we miss.
Yeah.
There's a Bernoulli gate.
Yeah.
I think the first sketch was trigger in, CV in, and one output.
Yeah.
But the push functionality was there from the beginning.
What that straight off the Stolperbeats, the idea that clocks and rhythms can be playful was important.
Yeah, we like it as a performance instrument. So you mute and you can have a break in your performance. Yeah.
And you suggested DivSkip as a name. I think you said clock divider, DivSkip, divide and skip, and obviously I was over the moon. Let's just call div everything.
It divides, it skips, it's a DivSkip, right? Yeah. And there's also, of course, the awesome skip divided track by Tom York, which, I don't know, uses a lot of interesting skippy electronica, and so I thought it was a great name.
Yeah. No, straight away. Div anything. Div coffee, let's go for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But then, as this kind of developed, conversations happened around that there were musical things and rhythmic things you wanted to do that maybe didn't make as much sense on Stolperbeats. Things like the Euclidean rhythms and how to adapt those.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a level to where so every time you add features, you add another layer, right? And that's something that modular is extremely good at, because the other layer to modular is just another module.
Yeah.
So if you have a very easy to use sequencer and then have a second module that can give you random and probability and chance and overlaid sequences, then I think that's almost the better solution, because you have a way to display the one very clearly, the other very clearly, and then you always know what you do. Because the one thing I don't like so much is if you have a module that under the hood does a lot of things that you don't understand at all. And then you're on stage and you're like, and...
yeah, you forget over time how to use it, and you have to have your quick start and stuff.
Yeah.
It's making those digital things and things that have modes feel analog in a performative way, or as close to as you can.
Yeah, I think so. And a wonderful thing about digital is that you can actually have much nicer visualization. So, for example, here I have red means always going to A, blue means always going to B, which is not patched here, so we don't hear it. And then half red, half blue is, it's 50-50, one or the other way. Another one that I really like is the second mode, which gives you a clock divider, or two clock dividers, one on the one side, one on the other side. So
What I really like about the dual output, like the clock divider, which full credit to you, this isn't me praising myself in any way, is that I may want a division of 3, I may not want to use the other output, but there's another output that's doing something interesting and is related to how I've set the channel up.
yeah.
On all the modes, there's always that second layer of, well, what does the B output do?
Yeah, and so the interesting part is, okay, I have a display of 16 steps, right? If I set 1 to 3, I have the other 13 sort of left over, so I can have another sequence running through that, and then I have a 3 clock division, which is very common, but then I also have like a 13 clock division, which is very uncommon, and I sort of maybe get lured into doing polyrhythms, just rhythms beating against one another.
The fact it's there invites that play very quickly and immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And you can just, I think a little bit like with the Stolperbeats, you can just choose a mode, put in a trigger, and see what you get.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't understand anything, that's fine. And then you kind of dig into the thing and see what it does, and it does interesting things like touring-style trigger sequences, right? On different.
And you have that
step
very
lengths.
lovely modular thing of when you're then CVing, say, the clock divisions, as you increase or decrease the amount of steps in one part of your pattern, you're doing the opposing thing on the other one.
Yeah.
And it becomes very playful and kind of interactive.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
a really distilled, simple way.
Yeah. And I think the building blocks of music are not complicated, right? Like it's very interesting. Like, okay, we associate something like playing the piano with a very complicated action, but that's all the player in the end, right? Like a piano is a really intuitive instrument. Like a child can hang from the keys with all the weight and play a chord.
Yeah.
Like whether that's musically great or not, but it's very intuitive. And I think, this can be something that we as instrument designers and we as a community can greatly improve about electronic instruments, I think. Because...
make it as simple as hitting a drum or pressing a key.
Make it as simple as you can go without losing the detail, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a little bit the philosophy behind the things we make, and
that's
just the
what
things
we search for in
exactly.
music instrument development.
And since we're a family business in the sense that we got to know each other in university, and we got married 2 years ago now. And the discussion begins over coffee, right?
Yes, in the morning.
Yes, exactly. So it's a very direct way also of having instant feedback on bad ideas, which is also great.
We should also say, as we come towards closing off our discussion, that you also make and look after the Plinky synth as well.
Yes, exactly. So the Plinky is a project that we ourselves can take no credit in designing. That was all done by Alex, who designed it just before the COVID crisis hits. Then no chips were available at all. There were a lot of people interested in it, but it was such a lovely project, and we were in a great community with Leipzig West modules, with Turbotech, with then all the
This is not rocket science.
This is not rocket science. Lowry from Basky Instruments, and Crazy Emperor, who does now produce the BIB module, and it just grew into this tight-knit community of music makers talking about their next design and what they want to do and what they see and stuff. And we were all sort of brought together by the first 250 Plinkies that were made, and then none were made at all. And so when the chips became available again, which was only like beginning of this year, we were like, man, there should be new kids because we love hanging around there so much, and there should be new people coming in. And we asked Alex, and Strocodile and Thonk were very enthused about having it again. And they were fantastic to work with. And a small thing I want to point out is that the new version comes with this lovely, playful, adventure-timey design on the back, right? So we still have the old Starfield version, but there is this one now that Paper Noise made for us. And it was a really fun project because I got in touch with Hannes. I was like, hey, I really like the panels you did for Hex Inverter and Mutable, and I really, really like the little characters that are on there, like the Chrono Blob on the Chrono Blob. And he was like, yeah, that is all my wife Elizabeth who did this. You should maybe ask her. And he was super enthusiastic about it. And she made us this panel, which has a little synth adventurer on going through like a garden of sounds. I interpreted it this way, with little monsters and spirits on the way. And there's also a little spirit carrying an audio stereo cable on the back. It comes with a beautiful colored sticker. And let me try.
Do we still have time?
Maybe end on a really quick example of the Plinky.
Play 3 notes.
Yeah, we play you 3 notes on the Plinky.
Yeah, you have 3 notes. And then we're going to cut you off. Talk and play forever, but I will cut you out. There's more than 3 notes. Bad, Roland.
Okay, yeah.
Making DivSkip's been an absolute pleasure, but the other modules as well. I'd encourage everyone to come and play around with Stolperbeats, the FARB range, and DivSkip, of course. Go check it out. For people watching, makingsoundmachines.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever comes next.
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.